Hey, what's going on, guys? So today we got some huge news, that being the Skymill Studios YouTube channel just uploading a trailer for the Kindred Fates Alpha that's going to come out later today. And in it, we get a ton of information, including move descriptions, item descriptions, a look at how the stamina works, some really cool gameplay, etc. So what we're going to do is a complete breakdown of this trailer, and I even have a little bit of speculation to throw there as well, because I did see some interesting things that I think we need to discuss. But anyways, let's dive right in. Okay, so before we break everything down, we're going to run through the trailer very quickly just so you can get an idea of the context of how much information was packed into this tiny little trailer. So let's check it out. Look at all this info. They're not messing around. Okay, so we're going to have to go right back to the 11-second mark, but basically now that you guys can kind of see how much information they throw at you in such a small amount of time, like, think about it, the trailer doesn't actually start till about 11 seconds in, and then it ends at about 57 seconds. So really this is a 40-second trailer that just throws a ton, like, I can't, you know what? I can't even begin to explain how much information is in this trailer, so we're just going to break it down right here. So, firstly, I'm going to ignore these held items because we're going to get all the information you could ever ask for on them. We're going to learn all of their effects and everything later. But I want you guys to pay attention to Slifer here, okay? Pay attention. Do you notice anything interesting? I'll play it again. Pay attention to Slifer's stamina when he attacks. All 3 attacks, he has a full stamina bar. Okay? His slash attack goes on cooldown for 1 second. Right? He dashes away. Stamina usage. Dashes away again. This time he glows. I'm assuming the glowing is sort of showcasing its invincibility frames. That's my assumption. Because this isn't a technique he's using. None of his attacks are on cooldown right now. So my assumption here is the first dash is just a movement dash, right? And then the second dash is an invincibility frame dash, where if you get attacked while you're in that sort of glowing effect, you don't take damage. It'll go through you. It's interesting. I didn't expect there to be a double roll or a double dodge. So I'm very interested to see if that's a Slifer specific thing or if it's something that everybody's going to get. Now, it's interesting because your abilities don't actually use stamina, and I don't think there's going to be an auto attack that isn't an ability. So by the looks of it, stamina management is going to be solely consisting of dodging. So just something to keep in mind. Stamina might not be as important as it is in a game like Dark Souls. Okay, again, watch Shovel Butt. No stamina usage whatsoever. So interesting. It's very interesting. Another thing to note, and this is a little bit more on the speculative side. I guess you can consider this somewhat speculation, but okay, if you look at Shovel Butt's attacks, it has 2 Earth type attacks. One of them's hard to see because it has the 8 on it, but a light type attack and a mecha type attack. So either Shovel Butt has 2 leans, or having a lean is something that is either A, arbitrary, or B, something that we just don't know what the exact requirements of a lean is, because Kindred Fates doesn't have damage multipliers. So technically speaking, it doesn't really matter what 2 types you are. Like, it really doesn't. There doesn't seem to be any sort of same type attack bonus either. So it's basically just the type is just a categorization. But when it comes to leans are supposed to be that you have moves of that certain type, or you lean towards that type. So what constitutes a lean? Is it 2 moves, 3 moves, 1 move? Like, what makes you lean towards, let's say Shovel Butt had 2 light moves. Would it be a Earth with a light lean then? What if it had 3? What if it had 4? I'm just wondering where the line of what a lean is, because if leans are just based on what it can learn, then this has 2 leans, but I don't think that's the case. So let me know what you guys think is the sort of line that makes something a lean or not, because by the looks of it, and since there's no damage multipliers, it's somewhat arbitrary, and I don't mean that in in a bad way. I'm just saying it doesn't really. It seems like leans just might be based on whatever they say it's based on, because then it makes you wonder: does Kadoki have an air lean? Does Slifer have an air lean? Or is it just that Kinfolk can learn attacks from different types like they do in Pokemon? And if that's the case, again, where do the leans come from? Anyway, let's continue. Okay, this is something that Umberto talked about in his video, and I didn't talk about in mine because I figured it was just when you get damaged, the HP bar turns yellow for a second and then goes down to the normal spot, but that doesn't seem to be the case, and I don't think it's damage over time like he predicted. I think this yellow is just the last amount of damage taken, right? Because if you pay attention to the deer, it's not taking any damage until it takes damage, and you can't really see the result. But if you go over to the Slifer scene here, takes damage, that's the last amount of damage he took, and when he takes damage again, it's within a very short period of time, so that's why I think it stacks. And it doesn't seem to go away, but again, we don't really see. But judging by the positioning of Skullkin and the Light Stag, perhaps it just sticks around until you've taken damage again. It could be a useful tool for if you're trying to figure out whether or not you'll survive an exchange. You can see exactly how much damage you took the turn before. Or, well, real-time combat, not really a turn, but you guys know what I'm talking about. This stag seems like it's trying to outrun the clock here. It's got about 9 seconds left. Okay, so this is where things get a little interesting, and there's going to be a lot of pausing and reading off descriptions, because we pretty much get descriptions of all the items and a lot of the moves. So pay attention to the top right corner. This is just showcasing the sort of character selection. You could pick like your image. One thing of note is the player score, which essentially Joey in the Discord said it's basically like an ELO, except it's not going to match make you, as of right now anyway, with other people of a similar score. It's just, it's kind of cosmetic. I think it's just to sort of show how you're doing, but anyway. Okay, so this is another thing I didn't really mention because I thought it went without saying, but I guess I'll talk about it here. You can have multiple sets. Right? You can preset them. You don't have to do it every single time. I think it would have been a real big mistake if they didn't implement this. But yeah, so if anyone was wondering, you definitely can save. We know for sure up to at least 5 teams. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little more. Okay, so here it goes through it really quick. So you got to pause, right? Okay, swipes. The user strikes up to 3 times in a quick succession with melee attacks. Bounce, a jumping ability that can be charged. The longer the user charges said ability, the further they are launched. So it's going to be really interesting to see how far exactly you can move. I was at first, the very first time I watched this trailer, I thought, oh, maybe that's what Slifer was doing with his second dodge, but he didn't have bounce equipped, right? If you go back here, there's no bounce. So whatever that dodge he was doing was not the bounce technique. So I'm still very, very interested to see what exactly that is and how exactly it works. Now we got to be quick here. There we go. Bite. We've seen this in the newsletter as well. One of them, I'll probably just put a little image on screen of it. But the user bites down directly in front of them, dealing heavy damage, staggering the enemies caught in their jaws. Now here, it's very easy to miss. But if you're really quick with it, you can get the the ability descriptions for all of Ember's attacks. And you're going to notice something interesting here. The first attack isn't present. If you look at Ember's like basic sort of like fireball attack, it's not on the right side. And you might be thinking, oh, well, maybe it's because it's selected. I don't think that's the case at all, as you'll see in the future. But I'm thinking the first abilities are set for every Kinfolk. They're just the basic attack that every single time it's going to have it. Ember will always have that first fireball move. Shovelbutt will always have that slashing earth type move. Kudoki will always have the three, whatever those are, the three Gaia balls. And Skullkin will always have the three dark balls. And I'll explain why in a second. Anyway, so Armor Up is Ember's first ability. The user takes a defensive stance for 2 seconds, raising their physical and special defense by 1 stage. So this is something that I can imagine people using as like, you use the fireballs that sort of create distance, and then you use this while the person's taking AoE damage or something. That way, during your next close range exchange, you're a little tankier for the situation. Then it's got Explosion. The user spawns a massive explosion at a target location, dealing tremendous damage to anything that's caught in the blast. So that's sort of that attack that we'll showcase later, where Ember kind of lifts up its arms and it creates an explosion. We've seen it in the Kickstarter trailer, and we've also seen it in the screenshots that we were talking about yesterday. And then you got Fire Spin, which the user spins, creating a circle of flames, which damage and knock back enemies. I believe that's an ability we've seen before with K-Knight, but I'll have to double check with that. Fireball, the user fires a large powerful ball of fire in a target direction. Scorch, the user lobs a flaming ball of oil that bursts on contact. Those are those rings we also saw in a screenshot as well. Basically, if you get caught in them, you start to take damage. Skullkin got hit by them in the combat teaser trailer video that we saw a long time ago with K-Knight. So that's something we already know of as well. And then Thrash, the user unleashes 5 powerful melee attacks directly in front of them. So nothing too crazy to say about that. Okay, then he's going to move over to the list of Kinfolk. There's nothing really specific here. It's just showcasing, you know, their playstyle, which is going to be the same for every Kinfolk of that type. And then its weaknesses and its strengths. Then, okay, rations. We'll talk about this in a second because we're going to get the whole list. Boom. We were doing some speculation on some of these, so now we can actually say exactly what they are. So there's a Chrysanthiodote, which is a consumable that'll automatically cure poison. Coffee Bean will automatically cure the sleep status, so that's not a rock like I thought it was. The Aloe will... heal your burn. Rations is this game's version of a leftover. It gives you 5% of the user's maximum HP every 5 seconds. The Peach is like a citrus berry, although when you get to less than a quarter health, it heals you for 50% of your HP, so it's very powerful. And then the Black Mask is sort of like that odd item that's going to be very dependent on how you build your team. I completely got this wrong. I thought it would either hide your HP, stamina, or maybe make you like invisible while you're not moving, like something not too powerful. But it deals one. Well, actually, that would have been a little too OP because the game has a timer. People would just hide. But anyway, deal 1.3 times normal damage, but the holder takes damage equal to 5% of their max HP anytime they hit an enemy. So this is kind of like a life orb from Pokemon, just sort of situated into real-time combat. Okay, so we've already seen Thrash, but now these are Mechid's abilities, and what do you notice? Mechid's first attack is absent. It's not here, right? So when we looked before at Ember's first attack, and Shovelbutt used to be here, but anyway, the same thing kind of goes. Mechid's first attack's missing here because I think they'll always have their first attack. So you got Armor Up. So that's the same thing. We already saw that, so it shares a move with Ember here. Fortify, which Shovelbutt also has this technique. The user fortifies their body for 2 seconds, raising their physical defenses. So Armor Up and Fortify, having them together seems pretty powerful. Iron Fist, which we will actually see in a bit, and that's actually kind of a really nice call to Galvalant, or as we like to call it, Mech King's code name was Iron Fist, so it's nice that they kind of incorporated that into an ability. The user brings down a massive ghostly fist of iron on a target location. Enemies struck by the attack. No, it is stuck by the attack, become stunned for a short period of time. So that's very interesting. It has a very powerful attack mixed in with a stun. Might be kind of insane, to be honest. The user dashes forward in a quick straight line, dealing damage to all enemies in their path. That's Rush. Now, What I want to do here is I want to compare this to the abilities here. So see, Slifer doesn't have, because I had a feeling someone's gonna say, oh, maybe that's what Slifer has. No, it doesn't. It doesn't have Rush, so it's not that dodging ability either. So it's just, there's a lot of interesting information here, and we're honestly just scratching the surface. So we already saw Thrash. I'm not gonna go through that again. Then we get to quickly. No, in the case, that's it. That's all the moves we get to see, unfortunately. So you get to see the 3 arenas. The first one's the runes. This is the riverside. And this one's either called woods or forest. I can't remember. Here you see again, it took damage and it has a little yellow in front of its HP bar. The Light Stag uses some beam move, that's its middle attack. We don't have the name for that attack, unfortunately. But see how long Shovelbutt keeps that yellow on his HP bar? It seems like that's just going to stick until the next time you take damage, honestly. Oh, and then this Kadoki attack is pretty interesting. So if you notice, his left click attack, which is more than likely than not his basic attack that he's forced to have, because again, the Stag has that basic attack. Slifer has a basic attack. Shovelbutt has the same basic attack every time. Skullkin always has that same basic attack. Every single time we see these guys, they either have and if you notice, a lot of them are just recolored versions of each other. So Kadoki and Skullkin have the same type of basic attack, but they're different types, obviously. And then Ember and the Light Stag have the same kind of one. Slifer and Shovelbutt have the same kind of one. So that first attack is definitely your basic attack. And if you look, I'm sure Skullkin's is very similar. Here, we'll go here. I'm sure when Skullkin uses it, it's going to be very similar. Just different type. But as you can see, it's sort of almost like a frisbee. Right? Very fast recharge. And then here you can see the Wicked Thorn has its own health because, again, Gaia types use sort of tokens and minions and stuff like that. So this is basically like a physical turret. And we have seen this before, if you guys remember in a newsletter as well. This was sort of teased. But this is going to be something that's going to protect Kadoki. And you're gonna as Kadoki, you're going to be able to use this to your advantage a lot by sort of camping near it. And, you know, if people want to make an exchange with you, they're going to take some extra damage. Now, another interesting thing to note is because the held items gave us information about different status effects, we know there's poison, we know there's burn, and we know there is sleep, I believe. Yes, because of coffee bean. Yes, so we know there's sleep. If you look at this here, that's a mushroom that seems to put you to sleep. So another thing to keep in mind. I can imagine a combination where you put your enemy to sleep and then you spawn these Wicked Thorns and just go crazy on them. Kadoki might be a very, very powerful threat. Okay, here we go. So if you look at Mechid just used the attack, but look at its stamina. It actually used some up this time. So what I'm wondering here, its attack is already recharging. So its stamina is still full and this attack's already recharging. So it wasn't using an attack to use up stamina. What it was doing was using its roll dodge. And again, we see those invincibility frames. And then its stamina goes down. So you're going to be able to use your roll dodging or your dodge mechanic, whatever you want to call it, to also come in on enemies, which isn't anything crazy to say like, oh my god, you could do that, right? But it is something to take note of. That's not the dash attack. That is a default attack that it seems like every Kinfolk will have. And if this game ends up working really well on controller, I'm hoping this ends up being something I'm actually good at. And then here we see he jumps. Again, that doesn't take up any of his moves. And even more than that, he doesn't use up any extra stamina, which is interesting. Right? Then he uses the this attack here, the Iron Fist move. Boom, right? Look at all that damage. It took out half of this thing's health. Right? And we don't get to see the aftermath, but basically Kadoki's going to be stuck for a second. Okay, and then here we see some Ember footage. Right? So he's using his right-click attack, which is that fire lobbing attack that creates the circles. And then he uses that explosion that we were talking about, right? So the explosion now, if you remember in the Kickstarter trailer, it seemed to create a line on the ground, whereas now it actually shoots a fireball. See? A fireball kind of comes out, then the explosion happens, whereas before it sort of created a line, and they were much bigger before. This is a much smaller version, but I think it sort of compensates with how much bigger the rings are. So we saw the rings get bigger and the explosion get smaller. Very interesting. I wonder if there was also a change to the amount of damage they do. And then that's it. That is the whole trailer. I got a little excited because they came out with a newsletter, but the newsletter just included the video. I got a little excited because I was like, oh snap, there's an extra newsletter. You know what that means. But yeah, basically, like, there is a lot of interesting information in this trailer. Like, just from watching the 40 seconds, you might look at it and be like, oh wow, that's really cool. But when you just go into this, like, all of these descriptions, we basically get confirmation that these first moves are stuck to the kinfolk that they're attributed with. Now, what's interesting is, okay, so Skullkin has the three-pronged attack, right? Well, let's say there's another dark type that gets added later. He might have the one that looks like Mechids, or the one that looks like Embers, or a slash attack, right? So it's not like every single dark type will have to have that triple, that frisbee attack that we saw, but Skullkin does, and it doesn't change. I don't know if it's going to be like that in the main game, but that's something that's interesting. Again, the whole lean situation, I'd really like to know exactly what the stipulations are behind what constitutes a lean, because like I said, it just, in Pokemon, having a second typing means that you're weak to certain things, you get stab on certain things, and I mean, generally you learn moves of that type. But in Pokemon, you could also just be a mono fire type, and you can learn an earth type move, or ground rather, or a you guys know what well, a lot of fire types can learn solar beam, for example. Like, that doesn't make them an additional type. So because Kindred Fates is lacking that additional typing and is lacking that that's the damage multipliers and the same type attack bonus, I really want to know what constitutes a lean. Other than that, again, we got some really interesting information. I want to go back a minute because we saw with the items, right? With the items, we did see something pretty interesting. Right? So, cures the burn status is what I wanted to talk about. So, we have poison. We know Skullkin. That's pretty much guaranteed to be a poison type attack. Or a poison usage attack. And I don't remember which video, but I'm pretty sure in one of my videos I speculated that dark types would utilize poison. So, I mean, I'm happy that I got that right. But burn. So, I wanted to go back to Ember's moves and see, do we see anything that uses burn? Okay, so here we are. So there is no attack that says that it creates burn specifically as a status. So my guess is that the Scorch attack is going to be that burn effect. It doesn't specifically say that it'll burn the target, but I'm assuming because it creates damage on the ground that lasts several seconds, that's what the alloy is going to save you from. Other than that, there doesn't seem to be any specific burn status unless something constitutes that status, like getting hit with enough fire attacks in a row or something to that effect. So that's another thing to keep in mind. It seems like that leaf will be specific to Ember's rings for right now. Could be wrong on that, but I don't see any other evidence to suggest otherwise. So yeah, anyways, guys, I'm not going to keep you guys any longer. This video is already about 25 minutes long, but I think it's warranted given how much information we got here. I mean, hell, Crank and the Faders spent 2 hours on this thing, so you know, I think I beat them on the efficiency part. Anyways, guys, so if you did enjoy the video, as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more monster taming content, especially if you're into Kindred Fates. This next couple weeks is going to be very Kindred Fates heavy, I'll tell you that right now. I've been making videos on Kindred Fates since before the Kickstarter. Well, since before the Kickstarter ended, since the Kickstarter began, I've been making videos about Kindred Fates, and I've committed myself to at least making 1 to 2 videos a week since then, specifically about Kindred Fates. We got 55 videos of Kindred Fates on this channel, okay? And there's going to be a hell of a lot more now that I actually have gameplay to work with. Like, that's how much I made without gameplay. You just wait now. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.